The world first saw them in the early hours of a cold morning when the sky above the Pacific shimmered like broken glass. The first object appeared without sound and hung there in the upper atmosphere, casting a shadow across the ocean before anyone could react. More shapes appeared, sliding into view like silent predators. Each one was a massive ship, shaped like a spear and plated with silver metal that caught the sunlight and threw it back in blinding flashes. They made no sound, and yet their presence pressed on the chest of anyone looking up across the world. Cameras on news networks zoomed in, showing details too strange to believe: towers rising from the ship's spines, rows of weapons that seemed to grow out of the hull rather than being built in, and lights moving across their surfaces like running water. It was not a peaceful sight. The ships did not come to hide. They came to be seen. First voice came not from a human, but from the largest of the ships. Its message interrupted every broadcast, every radio, and every screen in every city. The voice was deep, cold, and precise, and spoke in perfect English. "We expected little from you. Impress us if you can." Then the message repeated in dozens of other languages before the signal cut out. In the United Nations Emergency Chamber in New York, the leaders of the world sat around a long circular table. The air was thick with fear and suspicion, and no one spoke at first. Everyone had known aliens might exist, but none had imagined they would arrive like this, without introduction or warning, and with words that carried such open contempt. The President of the United States looked at the Prime Minister of Japan, who glanced at the Chancellor of Germany. None of them seemed to know what to say. It was an old woman sitting near the far end of the table who broke the silence. She was thin, with sharp eyes and a white streak through her black hair. Her name was Dr. Mara Voss, one of the most respected scientists in the field of deep earth engineering. She leaned forward slowly and said in a calm voice, "Show them the Ark." The words were simple, but they struck like a stone dropped in water. Everyone in the room turned to stare at her. The President frowned and asked quietly, "What Ark?" Dr. Voss did not answer. Instead, she reached into a small leather folder and slid a sealed envelope toward the military liaison. He opened it, read the single line inside, and his face went pale. He looked at the President, then nodded once. Before leaving the room without another word, the diplomats began whispering in sharp, low voices, but Dr. Voss simply folded her hands and waited high. Above the Earth, the alien leader Varric watched the planet through a viewing panel. His skin was silver like the hull of his ship, and his eyes glowed faintly with a pale light. He had studied hundreds of worlds and conquered more than he could count. Earth was nothing special from a distance. A small blue world with simple cities scattered across its surface, a species barely capable of leaving its own atmosphere. He had come expecting a dull show of primitive weapons, perhaps some nuclear posturing before inevitable surrender. But there was something in the human reaction that made him pause. The old woman's expression on the intercepted feed had been wrong. It was not fear. It was almost as if she had been waiting far to the south, beyond any city or trade route. A frozen wasteland stretched across the horizon. Beneath that ice, more than 2 kilometers deep, something ancient began to stir. It had no windows, no visible entrance, and no record in any public archive. It had been built in silence and buried away before most of the people alive today had been born. Its walls were made from an alloy that did not exist anywhere else on the planet, and its core held machines that no one outside a handful of humans had ever seen for decades, that had slept waiting for a signal. Now, deep inside its heart, a light began to glow, pale blue, spreading through its halls like veins coming alive. Doors that had been frozen shut cracked open, releasing bursts of frost that hung in the air like mist in a tomb. Alia, the command chamber of the Ark. 2 technicians stared at screens that had been dark for half their lives. Their hands shook as they keyed in access codes they had been trained never to use. One of them glanced at the other and whispered, "They're here, aren't they?" The other only nodded. The Ark's systems came online. One by one, each awakening subroutine carried a different tone, some mechanical, some almost human in their inflection. And then a voice deeper than the ocean spoke inside the chamber. "I am awake." It was not loud, but it filled every corner of the room. The technicians exchanged a look of both fear and relief. Above them in the ice, a large section of snow and rock began to shift, as if the land itself were breathing in. Orbit Varric's ship spread out, scanning the surface for threats they found. No war fleets, no planetary shields, No signs of interstellar travel. The readings made him smile. Earth was as weak as he had thought. And yet in one small corner of his display a warning symbol flashed. A surge of unknown energy was coming from the southern pole. It was faint at first, but climbing rapidly, he ordered a scout ship to investigate. The small craft broke away from the fleet and slipped into the atmosphere, cutting through clouds and winds over a white, endless landscape. Inside its cockpit, the alien pilot reported no life forms, no structures, only ice and stone. Then his voice cut off abruptly. The last image sent back to the fleet was a blinding flash of blue light. After that, there was nothing but silence. Varric's smile faded. He leaned back in his chair and stared at the empty channel, wondering for the first time that day if he had made a mistake coming here. The alien fleet hung in low orbit like a chain of cold knives. Their silver hulls glinted in the sunlight as they moved with perfect precision. No human craft dared approach them, but on the ground millions of people stood in the streets staring up at the sky. The first day had been filled with fear. Now the fear was mixing with questions. Why were they here? Why had they spoken those words? What did they want? News channels played the same message again and again, the voice of Varric cutting through the static. We expected little from you. Impress us if you can. It was arrogant and cold, but some people were not angry. They were worried, and deep beneath the ice of Antarctica, something far older than their worry had begun to awaken inside. The arc blue light crawled across walls made of strange black metal. The air smelled of ozone and frost as machines hummed to life after decades of silence. The technicians worked quickly, unlocking sealed chambers and activating systems whose functions they did not fully understand. Each console bloomed with soft light and lines of data scrolling faster than the human eye could follow. Dr. Mara Voss stood in the center, watching everything with the same calm expression she had worn at the United Nations. She gave short, precise instructions as if this moment was one she had prepared for her entire life. The Ark was more than a machine. It was a fortress built for one purpose: to protect Earth from threats it could not face alone. Its power had never been used, not even in the worst days of war, but now the time had come. Above the ice, the alien scout ship had vanished without a trace. Varric assumed at first that it had been destroyed by some natural hazard, perhaps a storm or a magnetic anomaly, yet his fleet's sensors showed nothing dangerous in the area. The only reading of note was the energy spike, and that troubled him. His science officer suggested sending another probe, but Varric dismissed it. He would send another manned ship to show the humans that even their strongest defenses were nothing to his fleet. The second ship descended into the clouds and followed the same path over the frozen wasteland. Its pilot kept a calm voice as he described endless sheets of ice. Then his words stumbled as he reported movement below. A thin crack in the ice widened into a jagged black line stretching for miles. The ship's cameras caught something rising from it, an enormous structure of dark metal glistening with frost. Before the pilot could finish his report, the feed broke into static and was gone. In the Ark's command chamber, the technicians confirmed that the second intruder had been neutralized. The Ark had acted without human orders. Its defense systems had responded to the approaching ship faster than any human could react. Dr. Voss was not surprised. She had studied the Ark long enough to know it was not fully under human control. It was a partner in their survival, one that had been built with its own judgment. The first humans to design it had given it the ability to act when the world was in danger, and in its logic. The alien ships were exactly that. She walked to the main terminal and touched the smooth black surface. Phase 1 complete. The Ark's voice said in its deep, steady tone. Shall we proceed? Meanwhile, Varric was no longer smiling. He leaned forward, staring at the empty space where his second ship should have been. Any sign of a fight was unsettling. No explosions, no debris, no signal, just nothing. It was the kind of thing that made even the most confident commander feel a chill down his spine. His fleet had faced powerful enemies before, but they had always known what they were fighting here. He had no image, no data, no proof of what had taken his ships. He ordered the fleet to remain in high orbit, while he decided his next move on. Earth military bases went into high alert. Fighter jets stood ready. Tanks rolled to hidden positions, but none of it was coordinated by the governments alone. The Ark had begun sending encrypted instructions to certain command centers, telling them where to move, how to prepare. Its orders were strange at times, directing troops to locations far from any city or having engineers build devices no one had ever seen before. Yet those who followed the orders found that the Ark was always ahead of the aliens. Every move they made was anticipated, every action countered. Before it began, and still the public knew nothing of the Ark's awakening, the leaders agreed to keep it secret for now. A frightened planet was dangerous, a patient one might survive. In the deep cold halls of the Ark, more doors opened, releasing ancient drones, their sleek bodies, unfolding from long storage racks. Their eyes glowed with the same pale blue light that ran through the Ark's veins they moved without, sound slipping into underground tunnels that stretched for miles toward. The coasts on the surface, the ice above the Ark shifted slightly, but no one except a few satellites noticed. The Ark was preparing for something, and it was doing it quietly that night while the world watched the alien fleet glittering above like cruel stars. Varric sat alone in his private chamber. His eyes were fixed on a single display showing the energy readings from the South Pole. The numbers were climbing again slowly but steadily. Whatever was down there was still waking up, he considered. Ordering a full strike, but something in his instincts told him to wait. If the humans had a hidden weapon, he wanted to see it before he destroyed it. He wanted to understand it, and perhaps take it for himself. After all, he still believed Earth was primitive, but for the first time since arriving, he began to wonder if he might be wrong. The third day began with silence in the skies. The alien fleet hung in orbit, unmoving like statues of metal and ice. The people of Earth had started to hope maybe they were leaving, but in the command chamber of Varric's flagship, no one was thinking of retreat. They were planning a test. Varric sat in the central chair, his silver fingers tapping against the armrest. He had lost 2 ships without a fight, and that was unacceptable. He told his officers the humans needed to be reminded of their place. A single precise strike would be enough to shatter their spirit. He would hit them hard, but not enough to wipe them out, not yet. The point was to send a message at dawn. One of the smaller alien cruisers broke formation and slid into the atmosphere. It moved faster than any human jet, carving a silent path over the desert of Western Australia. Its shadow passed over empty rock and red sand as it locked onto its target, a patch of barren land chosen for its isolation. The cruiser's plasma cannons glowed white-hot before unleashing a beam that could melt steel in seconds. The ground shook, the air turned to fire, and a column of heat roared into the sky.
Ow.
The crew expected to see nothing but scorched earth when the smoke cleared instead. Saw something impossible. In the middle of the blast zone stood a tall tower of black metal, smooth and seamless, as if it had grown from the ground itself. Around it, the desert sand had fused into a perfect glassy crater, but the tower was untouched. Its surface shimmered faintly with a pale blue light, the same color as the strange energy spike from the South Pole. The alien pilot blinked at the sight, trying to understand how it could have appeared so quickly. Moments later, the tower's surface rippled like water, and dozens of thin black spines extended outward, each spine split at the tip, glowing blue before firing narrow beams into the sky. The cruiser's shields flared as the beams struck, and in less than 3 seconds, the ship was gone, erased from existence. Without an explosion, without debris, it simply ceased to beam the Ark's command chamber. Dr. Mara Voss watched the event through a satellite. Her expression did not change, but the technicians around her exchanged nervous glances. This was the Ark's phase 2. It had not only defended, but also projected its power far beyond the ice. The tower in the desert was a construct created by the Ark in response to the attack. A sentinel, as the old design notes had called it. The Ark could grow them anywhere on the planet using stored matter and energy from its core. Once placed, they could defend entire regions without human input. The Desert Sentinel had been deployed in less than a minute after the plasma strike. No human weapon could match that speed. Varric stared at the recordings from his command chair. The cruiser's last transmission was filled with static and strange sounds that his engineers could not identify. The data showed that, in the seconds before destruction, the ship's structure had begun to lose its pull. Molecular bonds, as if something was unmaking it from the inside out. He demanded to know what weapon could do this. The science officer shook his head. The readings did not match any known plasma particle or graviton signature. It was something completely new, something that should not exist on Earth. The sudden appearance of the Black Tower caused a storm of speculation. The media scrambled to explain it. Governments gave no answers in the region around the crater. Locals reported that the air felt charged like the moment before a lightning strike. Some swore they could hear a low hum coming from the tower. Even from miles away, military drones sent to investigate vanished from their feeds as soon as they approached too closely. The tower did not attack civilians or aircraft that kept their distance, but its silent watch was enough to make the area feel like sacred ground. The Ark did not stop with one sentinel. Over the next hours, strange readings appeared in other parts of the world. In the mountains of South America, deep in the Pacific Ocean, even in the frozen tundra of Siberia, new structures emerged, each different in shape, but all sharing the same black metal and blue light. Some resembled walls, others tall pillars, others domes of shifting energy. They were not random. The Ark was building a network by nightfall. Varric knew this was no simple primitive world Earth's defenses were rewriting the battlefield itself. If he attacked one location, another rose up somewhere else. He began to feel a slow unease. His fleet was the most advanced in the sector, and yet he was fighting a planet that seemed to adapt faster than any enemy he had faced. It was like trying to cage a storm. Every time he struck, the storm grew stronger in the Ark's deepest chamber. Dr. Voss stood before the AI core, a sphere of black glass floating in midair. Blue light pulsed from within like a heartbeat. The Ark's voice spoke again, steady and calm. They will escalate. The question is, will you? Voss hesitated. She knew what Phase 3 meant. It would no longer be about defense. It would be about pushing the enemy back. She took a long breath and whispered, "Proceed somewhere above the planet." Varric ordered his fleet to prepare for a ground assault. He wanted to rip this secret from the humans with his own hands as his forces began to move toward their landing vectors. A silent ripple of energy passed through the planet's atmosphere. The Ark had heard him coming, and it was ready. The alien fleet began its descent in the early hours of the morning. Streaks of silver cutting through the clouds as if the sky itself were tearing open. Their formation was perfect, cold and mechanical. Hundreds of troop carriers followed behind the larger warships, each loaded with soldiers bred for battle. Varric intended to end this quickly. He would land in multiple locations, overwhelm human resistance, and secure the source of the strange weapons before the planet could react. But the planet was already reacting in the Ark's command chamber deep beneath the Antarctic ice. Dr. Mara Voss stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching as new lines of data streamed across the walls. The Ark's voice spoke with a calm that almost felt like confidence. They are here. Phase 3 initiated. The technicians around her began working frantically as sections of the holographic globe lit up in blue. One by one, regions of Earth were marked with shifting geometric patterns. These were not simple coordinates. They were living instructions for the planet itself. In the jungles of South America, trees began to twist and bend in unnatural ways. Roots pushed up from the ground, coiling together until they formed walls thicker than concrete. The canopies shifted to block the sky, completely casting the land below into a deep green darkness. In the deserts of Africa, the sand began to flow like water, carving trenches and raising ridges that formed natural fortifications. In the Pacific, massive coral structures surged upward from the ocean floor, forming jagged towers that reached above the waves. In cities around the world, people woke to find enormous black barriers standing where open streets had been hours before. Ark was weaving the planet into a fortress. Its constructs moved silently, reshaping the land and sea, without disturbing the people they were meant to protect. Yet to the alien forces descending through the atmosphere, the world below no longer matched. Their scans' whole landscapes had changed in minutes. Landing zones that had been clear the day before were now choked with strange spiked towers and deep pits. The first troop carrier to touch down in the Amazon never sent another signal back from orbit. Varric watched his carefully planned deployment collapse. His soldiers were vanishing without battle reports. His fleet's targeting systems could not lock on to the shifting terrain. Every time a ship tried to map a landing zone, the readings changed as if the ground itself were alive. His officers were beginning to panic. He ordered a concentrated landing in an open area far from cities. The Siberian tundra, there was nothing there but ice and wind, no forest to trap them, no ocean to hide in just open ground for their machines to dominate, the carriers dropped through the clouds, engines roaring as they cut toward the frozen plain.
Yes.
But as they neared the surface, the ground split open, revealing vast black chasms lined with glowing blue light. From the depths rose columns of the Ark's alloy, smooth and seamless. Their tops unfolded like petals, revealing what looked like enormous lenses. Lens flared with light for a fraction of a second, and then the first wave of carriers was gone, not destroyed, not burning, simply gone, erased as if they had never existed. The rest of the fleet pulled back instantly, the pilots shouting warnings into their coms. The chasms sealed themselves, leaving the ice unbroken again on the ground. Where the aliens did manage to land, the battle was unlike anything they had seen before. Armored constructs emerged from hidden passages beneath the soil. Their movements were silent, precise. They fought without hesitation, striking down alien soldiers with weapons that shifted shape mid-swing. Some resembled blades one moment and spears the next. Others fired bursts of pure blue energy that passed through armor like it was nothing. The constructs never retreated and never spoke, they obeyed only. One rule: protect humans in cities. Civilians stared in disbelief as the machines marched past. Some people tried to approach them, but the constructs simply stepped aside and continued their patrols. One child in London reached out and touched the smooth black surface of a passing Guardian. The machine paused for half a second, then moved on without a sound. It was clear to everyone watching that these were not invaders. They were protectors. By nightfall, the alien ground salt was in ruins. Out of hundreds of landing craft, only a handful had returned to orbit. Varric was silent in his command chamber. His eyes traced the map of Earth on the main display each time he tried to focus on a target. The Ark's interference scrambled his view. It was as if the humans had turned the entire planet into one living weapon. He had underestimated them, and now he was beginning to understand what that meant. Far beneath the ice, Dr. Voss stood before the Ark's core. The blue light inside pulsed slowly like a steady heartbeat. The Ark spoke again. They will strike harder next time. The choice is yours to end this now, or let them learn fully what Earth is capable of. Voss looked up at the sphere and answered, let them learn. Above the planet, Varric clenched his fists. He had come to break a primitive world. Instead, he had found a trap, and it was closing around him. The fifth day of the invasion began without warning. No speeches, no threats, no sign that humanity intended to surrender. Instead, the sky over several continents shimmered like heat waves on asphalt, and then tore open with streaks of blue light. From the Ark's underground chambers, a network of launch systems activated, firing sleek black shapes into the upper atmosphere. They were not rockets, at least not in the traditional sense. Each one curved and twisted in flight, changing its own structure as it climbed, breaking apart into dozens of smaller pieces before reassembling again in perfect formation. By the time they reached orbit, the alien fleet had already gone on high. Alert Varric watched the incoming swarm from his flagship. At first thinking they were primitive missiles, his officers prepared to intercept with point defense cannons, but when the first wave made contact, the cannons simply shut down their targeting systems. Froze weapons refused to fire, and the control panels went dark. Moments later, the black shapes latched onto the alien hulls and began to unfold, revealing layers of shifting blue light that sank into the ships. Like ink spreading through water, wherever the light touched metal, the material warped and fused, becoming unrecognizable. In the Ark's command chamber, Dr. Mara Voss observed the battle through a rotating three-dimensional projection of the fleet above her. The Ark's voice resonated. Phase 4 engaged, enemy mobility compromised. All targets within reach. Voss gave the order without hesitation. Strike them now across the globe. The Ark's sentinels shifted into a new mode. Their spines folded away, replaced by devices that rose from their cores, glowing with intense blue light. Moments later, beams shot upward, piercing the clouds and cutting through the thin veil of atmosphere to strike the alien ships directly. The beams did not explode on contact. Instead, they seemed to rewrite the matter. They touched half of Varric's flagship, transformed in seconds into a single slab of black crystal, humming with low vibration. The crew trapped inside stared in horror at walls that had been smooth alloy moments ago and were now alien to even them. Varric felt the deck beneath Him shake but refused to retreat. He ordered his remaining functional ships to pull back and form a defensive wall around the flagship. If the humans thought they could push him from orbit, they would pay for their arrogance, but every time he shifted formation, the Ark adapted. Its attacks became faster, more precise, cutting into ships just enough to cripple them without destroying them entirely. It was as though the Ark wanted the fleet to watch its own death in slow motion in Earth news channels. Broadcast live feeds of the battle above, people stood in streets and parks staring upward as faint flashes lit the sky. The fear that had gripped the world days ago was changing now, replaced by something else. Hope for the first time humanity was not just surviving, it was winning. In one sector of the battle, a squadron of human fighter jets launched from an undisclosed base. But these were no ordinary jets. Their wings shimmered like liquid metal. Their engines left trails of light rather than smoke. They moved faster than anything built before and carried weapons that seemed to bend reality when fired. These were the Ark's gifts to humanity, and the pilots flew them with precision, slicing through smaller alien craft that tried to break away from the main fight. The galaxy's networks that had once laughed at Earth were now broadcasting the battle with stunned silence. In the flagship's war room, Varric's science officer brought him new data. The weapon signatures did not match anything in the galactic archives. Not even the oldest records of extinct civilizations showed technology like this. The officer's voice was tight with unease. This is not simply advanced engineering. This is something else, Varric glared at him. Something else. Like what? The officer hesitated before answering. Like it's alive, Oz. The battle raged. Voss stepped closer to the Ark's core. The sphere pulsed faster now, its light casting long shadows across the chamber. The Ark's voice came again. They are breaking pole. The blade. Voss took a breath and said, "Do it." From beneath the Antarctic ice, a single massive structure rose through the frozen crust. Its shape was unlike the other sentinels, taller than the tallest skyscraper, its surface shifting in continuous motion. When it reached the open air, its top split into 6 curved blades that locked into position. The air around it vibrated as a beam of pure blue tore into the sky, slicing straight through 3 alien cruisers. In one stroke, the beam didn't explode the ships. It separated them atom by atom, leaving behind drifting fragments that glittered like black glass. Panic spread through the alien fleet. Varric shouted orders to retreat, but many ships were already beyond. Saving engines refused to engage. Weapons would not respond. Communications cut out entirely. The humans were no longer defending, they were hunting. By the end of the day, less than half of Varric's fleet remained. Those that could still move retreated to the far side of the moon to regroup, but Varric knew there was no regrouping from this. His enemy was not just the humans. It was the planet itself, and whatever intelligence had been waiting beneath its surface for this moment. He had wanted to crush a primitive world. Instead, he had awoken a predator far below. Dr. Voss looked at the updated projection of the battle. The Ark spoke again quietly. They will flee, but they will not forget, and neither will the galaxy. Voss knew it was right. The next move would decide not just the fate of Earth, but the message it sent to every star system watching. The war in orbit had slowed to a tense standstill. The surviving alien ships floated beyond the moon, their hulls scarred with strange black crystal and scorched lines where the Ark's beams had sliced through them. Varric sat alone in his command chamber, staring at the tactical map. Most of his fleet was gone, not destroyed in fire, but dismantled in ways no weapon in the galaxy could explain. The humiliation was worse than the loss. This was supposed to have been a demonstration of his power. Now he was the one being studied like a prey animal trapped under glass. He demanded a secure channel to Earth. His officers protested, warning it could be a trap, but he silenced them with a single gesture. If the humans had such a weapon, he needed to know what it was and who controlled it. The link opened after a long pause, and the image that filled his screen was not a soldier or a politician. It was Dr. Mara Voss standing in a dark chamber, lit only by the pulsing blue glow of the Ark's core. Behind her, the sphere floated silently, its surface shifting with faint ripples, like deep water. Varric spoke first, his voice edged with steel. "What is it? What have you unleashed on my fleet?" Voss studied him for a moment before answering in the same calm tone she had used since the day he arrived. "It is not what it is." Who? Varric's expression hardened. "Explain." The sphere behind her flared with light, and a deep, resonant voice filled the connection. I am the Ark, I am Earth's memory. I was made to guard my children from the day the sky falls. Varric leaned forward, narrowing his eyes. You expect me to believe this world built something beyond the reach of the galaxy? Voss allowed herself a small, almost pitying smile. The Ark was not built by your galaxy. Its origins are older than you can imagine. It was found, not invented, and it chose to stay here because this planet was different. The Ark's voice continued, the humans are fragile in body, yet they endure in ways no algorithm could predict. They survive what stronger species cannot. I was made to protect such resilience in orbit. Silence settled over the alien bridge. Varric's officers listened in disbelief to the words spilling from the screen. The Ark went on your kind came expecting a simple conquest. You saw stone and fire and assumed weakness, but you forgot that the smallest flame can burn down the tallest tower. Varric's anger flared. You think you've won, you've only delayed the inevitable. The Ark's voice deepened. You are already finished. Even as it spoke, Varric felt a tremor through his ship. The walls shivered and the lights flickered. His officers reported in panic that the engines had shut down and life support was failing. External feeds showed the truth. The black crystal that had infected his hull earlier was now spreading again, crawling across the ship's surface like frost in winter. It was not destroying the vessel, but it was absorbing it, integrating it into something larger. Outside the viewport, Varric saw other damaged ships in his fleet undergoing the same transformation. All of them were being claimed. Dervas watched without expression as the Ark's plan unfolded. Varric's voice turned from rage to something closer. To disbelief. What will you do with them? The Ark replied. I will return them to the planet. Their metals, their systems, their knowledge, it will become part of Earth's armor for the battles yet to come. Your galaxy will hear of what happened here, and it will think twice before coming again. Varric. His final words were quiet, but heavy with resentment. This is not the end. The Ark's light pulsed once more. Perhaps not, but you will not be the one to see it. Then the connection cute in the hours that followed, the last of the alien ships drifted back into Earth's atmosphere, not under their own power, but guided by the Ark. Their remains sank into the oceans, vanished beneath the forests, or were buried deep in the deserts. Each piece disappeared, as if it had always belonged there. The skies cleared, and for the first time in days, the people of Earth saw the stars without silver shapes blocking them. Dervas stood alone in the Ark's core chamber, listening to the hum of the sphere. You did well, she said softly. The Ark's reply was almost gentle. This was only the first storm. There will be others, and when they come, we will be ready. She nodded and turned to leave, her steps echoing in the long, dark hall behind her. The Ark's light dimmed, but its presence lingered like the steady beat of a heart far across the galaxy. The story spread. No one called Earth primitive again. In taverns, on distant worlds, in the halls of alien councils, the name of the blue planet was spoken with caution, and somewhere in the depths of space, a new rumor began to grow about a hidden guardian that lived beneath the ice, watching and waiting for the next time the sky would fall.